eight-spoked sunburst on the altar of Shamash, and we see the female Yonic and the male Phallics. Both of those are there in the sun god worship. We see sun god worship. We see that sun, that eight-spoked sunburst on George Washington's apron there. Here is Baal's four-spoke sunburst on one of the altars in ancient Israel, up in the northern part, up in Judea and Samaria. Pagan gods carry Nimrod and Baal's sunburst on or behind their heads, and you can see that in the golden calf, as well as Isis of Egypt is carrying the sunburst between the horns of Baal. This imagery is used by Mithra and the Roman Catholic Church. Does everybody see those sunbursts behind there? That's pagan imagery, folks. That is not biblical. That's pagan imagery. And some people say that's a halo. That's not a halo behind the Roman Catholic Christ. That is a sunburst. And you must understand that's why the Roman Catholic Christ, Messiah, is not the Messiah, the Jesus, the Christ of the Bible. You must understand that. It is a counterfeit. Okay? All you Catholics got to love me or you won't go to heaven. Sunbursts are major symbols in Catholic expressions of worship. Here's Nimrod's eight-spoke sunburst in the Pope's hat there. I still don't know the name of that. You see it there on the altar. You see the four-spoked sunburst of Baal in his hat there. You see it, both of them carved into the pavement of the St. Peter's Square there. Baal on the inside, Nimrod on the outside, 8 and 4. And then, of course, in the middle is Baal's shaft, Nimrod's male organ in the middle of it. And, of course, that is all surrounded by the sacred pillars of Asherah. And you must understand what this represents here in sun god worship terms is the mating, is the coming together in a sexual act of the male and the female of these pagan divinities. That's what's represented in St. Peter's Square. Now, I know some of you are going nuts right now, especially the Catholics. Please hear me. I have nothing against Catholics, but I am going to deal with what is being preached and what's being done and what's being practiced. And all of this pagan imagery is absolutely disallowed by God. Now, after his death and he ascends to heaven, Nimrod then impregnates Semiramis with a sunbeam. Remember that? And she has a miraculous conception. And she gives birth to a son named Tammuz, and Tammuz is the divine rebirth or divine reincarnation of Nimrod. And she establishes a feast day in his honor called Yule Day or Infant Day, and the Yule Day feast becomes known as the birth of the unconquered son. And here's how that works, is that in life, Nimrod was represented by the tree, but in death he was represented by a stump called the Yule log. And his reincarnation or his rebirth was symbolized by here where we see the snake coming and wrapping itself around that stump. And then in the background there we see a brand new tree come up. Does everybody see that? Yeah. Okay. That represents his rebirth, Nimrod's rebirth in Tammuz. Here's how the tale goes. On Mother's Night, December 24th, the mother goddess throws the Yule log on a briskly burning fire. The next morning, December 25th, a new tree named Tammuz is miraculously born out of the fire, and this tree is called the branch of God and the tree that brings all divine gifts to men. This is the origin of the pagan ritual of giving and receiving gifts under trees. Amen? And we see all the imagery there, the Yule log, the wreath, and then the tree that brings divine gifts. This is pretty clear, isn't it? Okay, this is something that Israel fell into. On the left side here we see tree worship. This is in northern India. But apostate Israel fell into that. God talks about how they went up on every high hill and under every green tree and they laid down as a harlot there. Israel was seduced into doing this at Baal Peor. And Baal Peor is where they ate sacrifices to the dead. But Baal Peor is the place where Balaam taught Balak how to seduce Israel, so that they would sit down and they would eat at this pagan feast. And you say, well, that's ancient Israel. Well, God says that same teaching, the teaching of Balaam, to eat things sacrificed to the dead, is going to be in the church, especially in the end time church. In Revelation, he's talking to the church of Pergamos, where he says, that he has this against us, that because there are some there who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who kept teaching Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit acts of immorality. Please hear me. Balaam and Jezebel do the same thing. They encourage God's people to sit down at these pagan feasts and celebrate and eat the feast, eat the food that honors the dead pagan gods. And God commands his people here not to practice this pagan practice. Very clearly in Jeremiah 10, he says, don't go out and cut the tree down, don't bring it in, don't fasten it down, and don't deck it with gold and silver. He says, don't do that. So it's your choice. Are you going to do it? And that's where we left off last week. That took a little longer than I had planned, but here we go now. Because see, what happens is that Semiramis, because she has given birth to Tammuz, or the rebirth of Nimrod in Tammuz, she now, because this was a miraculous thing of the seed of the sun god, she gives that birth, and now she's called the Mother of God. That was her name back in ancient times. She deifies herself as the Spirit of God, and her followers worship her as the Queen of Heaven. Here's Asherah, the Queen of Heaven. Jeremiah 7:17. We read this last week in our Haftorah portion. Do you not see what they are doing in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and women knead dough to make cakes to the who? Queen of Heaven, and they pour out libations to other gods in order to spite me. What are those cakes that they're baking? What are those called? They're called the hot cross buns of Easter. That's what they are. That's just carried forward to today, folks. That's what it is. God says, no, don't do that. In fact, Israel was judged because they did that. Today, the Mother of God is universally known as the Catholics' Mary. This is from Wikipedia Encyclopedia. It says, the Queen of Heaven is a title given to the Blessed Virgin Mary by Christians, mainly of the Roman Catholic Church, and also, to some extent, in the Anglican, Lutheran, and Eastern Orthodox churches. This is creeping into Protestant circles. As Mother Goddess, Semiramis initiated mother-child worship. Here we see Semiramis and Tammuz. This is a drawing from ancient Babylon. Here we see in Egypt, Isis and Horus. And notice the sunburst is there of Baal. Here in India we have Ishi and Vishnu. Here in Africa we have the mother-child idol used to worship Shango. You all know Shango, don't you? Yeah. See, this is universal. This is not just in the church or just in the Catholic Church. This is universal. This spirit of Jezebel. She's the queen of the cosmos. She injects this thing throughout the nations. And then, of course, in Christian Rome, the Madonna and Child, and you'll notice that in the background, folks, that sunburst, that solar blaze, that is Nimrod's solar blaze. Now, problem here, Tammuz now. Nimrod dies. He impregnates Semiramis and then is reborn through Semiramis in Tammuz. But now Tammuz dies. He's killed by a wild boar, and Semiramis weeps 40 days for him. Now, this is from the book Morals and Dogma, page 379 by Albert Pike, who was a third-degree Mason, probably higher than that, but that's all that was published. And we see here, see this pillar right here? This pillar, remember, the pillar always represents the death of a sun god. One is the death of Nimrod. The second one is the death of Tammuz. And so Semiramis now, she's weeping for Tammuz. This is what this picture depicts, and when you read all the literature on it. After 40 days of her intercession, Tammuz is reborn from the dead. Remember that? Remember that broken pillar with the snake wrapped around it? That represents the rebirth of Tammuz. In other words, what that statue is saying, and where's that at? That's in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. I believe it's over the west entrance. And please hear me, what that's saying is that all who enter here believe in the birth of the unconquered sun, the rebirth of the unconquered sun in Tammuz. That's what it says. That's what it's saying. And who is this up here? The goddess? Athena, Minerva. Remember, Athena transitioned into Minerva. That was Minerva. That day became her special Ishtar feast day of celebration to honor her intercession. Today, the 40 days of weeping for Tammuz, followed by his being reborn from the dead, is symbolized in the 40 days of Lent, followed by the Easter or Ishtar celebration. That's how this thing comes down. Ishtar's fertility symbol is a mystic egg. Look what it says here. This comes out of the Two Babylons by Hislop. It says this. An egg of wondrous size is said to have fallen from heaven into the river Euphrates. The fish rolled it to the bank, where the doves, having settled on it and hatched it, out came Venus, who afterwards was called the Syrian goddess, that is Ishtart, or Ishtarte. Here's an ancient fertility symbol from Babylon. See that? Does it look familiar? Yeah. Because she is so fertile. She doesn't even need a man. And she's really big on intercession. Now, and I want to say this. I feel like I need to mention this. Ladies, and most intercessors are women, because you have a tenderized heart for things like that. But I want to say this, is that in some of the, and I'm not saying all of them, in some of the intercessory prayer groups, that's a place, that's a breeding ground for Jezebel. Because Jezebel will come in and say, I'm a prophetic intercessor, because see, Jezebel wants to be a prophetess. Does everybody hear me? And so I just want to say this. All your intercessory groups, all your intercession groups, I want you to make sure, this is what I encourage, this is what we do here, is that all intercession needs to be under the authority of a senior pastor who is a man. And that's not saying that a male, is impervious to mistakes. Just ask my wife, okay? I make mistakes all the time. But what I'm saying is that if you get out from underneath your male authority, which is the order of God, then what happens is Jezebel can get in there. When we had, our intercessory prayer group is by invitation. If you're not invited, you don't come to our intercessory prayer, okay? So it's always been that way with me. So, hallelujah. I just wanted to say that. You got to love me or you won't go to heaven now. Don't be mad at me, ladies. Just walk in the commandments of God and don't let Jezebel in there. I know that the ladies don't want Jezebel to get in there. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So I just felt like I needed to say that. Back to the fertility symbols. Isis, you can see the fertility symbol here as a rabbit, which is on this particular picture. And this is out of Henge's fable of Fablos. And this comes from, it actually comes out of Hislop's Two Babylons on page 109. It says this: the hare, the symbol of fertility in ancient Egypt, and you can see the rabbit down there, or the hare, is not found in North America, and its place is taken by the Easter rabbit, the symbol of fertility and curiosity, which is always fertile, both human and lunar. Credited with laying eggs in nests prepared for it at Easter, or with hiding them away for children. An egg-laying rabbit, how perverse is that? That's a mixing, folks. Yeah. In Germany, it says here on angelsfire.com, that's just a pagan website, it says, German pagans named the spring onyx after Ostara, their goddess of spring fertility and rebirth. In England, among the Anglo-Saxon tribes, Ostara was known as Easter. The modern holiday of Easter is derived from the name Eoster and the associated myths. Eoster, magical companion, was a rabbit who accompanied her as she brought new life to dying plants and flowers by hiding the eggs in the fields. What a deal, huh? And you can see this is an ancient statue of Eoster and her little buddy, the bunny. Now look at that bunny. It's got that. It looks like it's got a clock around it. What's that remind you of?